the basic thing I've been working on, I actually did this little chart thing because a huge part of my writing and what I've been doing is looking at spirituality, so like different forms of spirituality, and then social justice, and sort of how do they come together, because spirituality is sort of about for a lot of people, finding a way to be at peace in the world or have a good life or like be connected to something more. But social justice, I think, is a lot about making this world a better place. So it seems to me, or it has seemed to be like some forms of spirituality neglect acting in this world or actually, participating in changing culture. Not all of them, but some seem to focus more on where we're going afterwards, transcendence, rather than, and this, my admiration for some of these guys in the Enlightenment movement is that they talk about enlightenment as sort of more coming in and engaging with the world. And so my idea of evolutionary spirituality, that's sort of what the whole process is about, is spirit, us transcending fear and ego and lesser consciousness, not through, leaving this all behind, but rather totally embodying spirit in ourselves. And by doing that, transcending the limitations, but allowing spirit full presence in this world. So, that's kind of how I see the process of enlightenment is this process of spirit actually entering fully into the world and then transforming it through and then so spirituality, social justice, and then action. So, there's spirituality, personal, collective, all the forms, different ideas of spirituality, specifically mine being the evolutionary one. Then social justice, all things about changing the world, different ways people think the world needs to be changed and how we would change it. And then specific action. So that's the last component of my book. What actually can we do that isn't being done? So it seems like we have all these ideas for changing the world, a lot of people, and yet, we're still on the track to basically destroy our planet. We're still on the track to head into another big war. All of these things, we're still on track to not make it quite possible. So that's the general sense of these three, bringing these three things together: spirituality, social justice, and then immediate action. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like that. It reminds me of a lot of some of the things I've heard and some of the things I've read, and how there comes a point, I think, in a lot of it reminds me a lot of, I guess, what I was thinking. It reminds me of the Dalai Lama. One that I'm more familiar with just because I've read a lot of his books. But,
sure.
About how he was, kind of grew up a sheltered life in the temple.
Yeah.
And kind of
very educated, but very sheltered.
Exactly, very sheltered. Kind of viewed the world out there from his temple. It's kind of the same story as Buddha in some ways. Until 30 and gets out there and he's like, what the hell? There's suffering and all this stuff. And I guess the Buddha story for me is the one I can relate to most. Something like that is that eventually there comes this point, even if you're studying spirituality, that you're going to have to act on it. Or you feel the need to, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
And then I do see a lot of people that are acting on helping people, and I don't know, this is very hard for me to generalize. I don't want to generalize.
Go ahead and generalize, knowing it's a generalization.
Okay, because, I go every Monday night, every Monday morning I go to shelter, and it really is for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and so it's like hard to make a judgment here, but it's, I mean, I feel like some of the guys there probably, I don't really get the sense that they're very spiritual.
Sure.
Or doing it.
Sure.
It's more of like, you know, they feel they need to, you know, whether or not they connect with spirituality or something like that.
People help out of rage.
Yeah.
You know, anger. You know, there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah. I feel like I mean, there definitely seems to be a group of people there that go to like, that are into like kind of the same thing, like in music.
Yeah. Okay.
Like kind of like have this like their own little culture.
Huh.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah. I mean, they don't seem like very spiritual people. I mean, I could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of, and I feel like there's a lot of people that are like, and this to me, like I feel like this happens a lot. Like I feel like there's some guys that I've gotten to know, some of my friends I'm talking about, but they have they're you know they're into hardcore music and stuff like that. Usually hardcore is about being straight edge, and so I think it's like kind of this thing about being straight edge. I've always kind of gotten this thing with people that like are, you know, they latch on to a certain thing, you know, so I'm straight edge and this is how it's done, and then this is what we need to do, and then something gets lost there usually.
Yeah, and no, that's where you talk that is really, you know, important to what I feel like I'm trying to say, because I do feel like, you know, to have a real strong, solid foundation for trying to alter culture and change things for the better, people can do it for any reason, but I feel like to really make that difference, it has to be something more than just like, I prefer this, and it seems to be better, it seems to be more just, but I don't really know why something's just and something isn't, you know? Like, ultimately, there has to be some deeper foundation, in my opinion, you know, whether it's God or spirit or consciousness, there has to be something more foundational that, in a sense, even if it's not in a personality way, but in a sense makes the judgment, the value distinction between what's good and what's not. I mean, does that make any sense? Like, you know, so I can say that it's wrong to suppress the poor, but why? I mean, essentially, I mean, you could ask me why, and I'd say, well, because it's mean. Well, why is it wrong to be mean? You know, why, really? Like, if you really think about it, is that wrong, or is it just that somehow we prefer it, because maybe we don't want to have people be mean to us or something? But why would that ultimately be wrong? So for me, I don't know if it's clear, but there has to be some deeper foundation on which things are really wrong and right. I mean, does that make any sense at all? Even whether you agree or disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, disagree.
I think that people come to the realization that something's wrong or right if they're put in a certain situation, you know, like
But is it just unpleasant? And so we define unpleasantness, which we don't want, as wrong. But there's actually no real essential wrongness about it. It's more that wrong is our word for describing things which are just not desirable for us. I mean, is it essentially wrong? Or is it just that it's not desirable for us? But on a greater scale, not anything. It's not wrong or right or anything. It just is.
Yeah, it's tough because I mean, answer your question. Personally, I believe that like you are affected. You're affecting somebody negatively. Say like
you're affected by how you're affecting them.
Yeah, I mean, it affects. I mean, sure that it goes deeper than that. I mean, you're affecting the world in a negative way.
Sure. And I guess the question for me is, so you're affecting others negatively, yourself negatively, and the world negatively, and so we would define that as bad for those reasons. But if you just don't care if it affects you negatively, and you don't care if it affects the world negatively, you don't care if it affects others negatively, is there some standard by which, or some deeper foundation by which we can say, well, whether you care or not, that negativity isn't just some unpleasant sensation, there's actually a wrongness about that. You know, it's actually wrong. It's not just that it affects you negatively, so you probably don't want to do it. That there's actually some deeper reason why you shouldn't do it. Like more of a moral, a sense of a moral. I mean, does it make sense what I'm trying to say again, whether you agree or not?
No, it does. It totally makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to me. I mean,
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not expecting you to agree. It's more a matter of whether, you know.
I guess I find it interesting and something I want to keep on talking about.
Sure. No.
Because the wrong thing is, it's tough to get through to people when. I mean, essentially, people are gonna find that there's something off kilter with that kind of way of being.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, I think that if you start asking the question, people are like, well, why? You know?
Mm-hmm.
You could ask the same question and cut pretty deep into a person's self by saying, well, why don't you feel bad about it? You know, or why wouldn't you? Why would you think that? Why don't you care? Kind of a thing, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's.
Yeah, you could, but again, I think you could because my own belief, why this makes sense to me, is that the person, even if they, in their mind, said that they didn't care, something in them, some essential core in them, knows that it's wrong to hurt a child unnecessarily, brutally harm a child. It's not just that there's some negative sensation which affects me and it makes it less pleasant for me in my sensational experience of reality. No. It goes way deeper than that. It's way more fundamental to that it's wrong, whether you feel anything negative from that or not. And so that's where So let me just go into my spirituality a little bit more, because that is sort of the foundation, essentially, for everything else. So, because I do believe in gut and evil, not in the orthodox sense, but in that what we're talking about, the negative consequences, have this fundamental reason why certain actions have negative consequences. It's like this relational reality, almost like a mathematical thing that you can't escape from. So, in a sense, it could sound traumatic that way, but it's not really. So, anyway, so at the most essential level, in my belief, so we exist in relationship to all that it does, to basically an infinite reality. So we are an entity, we exist, we're real, but we're also connected to everything else. I don't know if this is going to come off very clear because this I haven't, but let me try to describe it. So existence is essentially about relationships because we have the self, we have the experience of self, but everything else that we can relate to, that we can experience, that we can know beyond ourselves, we experience through relationship. We experience through connecting with that which isn't us. So connection. So in a sense, to be alive, the experience of being alive isn't just being an isolated entity that has consciousness. It's more than that. It's being connected to all else, to the other, to everything else that exists. To me, that's essential to the experience of life, is to be connected to everything else. And so for me, without getting to any ideas of how creation comes about, an entity coming into existence then expands outward into reality in a relational fashion. It connects to all else that exists and relates to it, and builds relationship and growth. But say that entity, for whatever reason, becomes afraid of that relational process and decides that it would rather, instead of expanding itself, including more variety, including more of existence, it wants to be more secure and cut itself off and maybe control things more. Say an entity does that and it cuts itself off. To me, that's like what the reality of hell would be. It would be completely disconnected from all reality. It's sort of this existential madness in a sense, or schizophrenia, where you're disconnected from reality, all reality, and then more and more you're just isolated in your own, what you choose to know and feel and believe and control.
I like that.
Yeah, so I'm not really necessarily describing it that clearly, but it's sort of difficult. But anyway, so for me, that's the pattern of life and death, or good and evil, is that entities have the choice that we can either accept reality and grow into it and expand ourselves and include variety and the other into ourselves in a relational process, or we can cut ourselves off. And I think an entity that does that, it will seek to expand itself and experience life through control and force. So instead of expanding in a relational fashion and like including more reality and variety in itself, it will try to like force things to come into it and control what they are and like have total control. So it's almost like a pattern you see in like a dictatorship as opposed to say a benevolent true democracy would be that one is seeking to like control everything and to have it all conform to this central dictatorial force, and the other is able to expand to include variety and try to include as much variety and freedom as it can, and then have relationships within that. So to me, yeah, that's like this essential pattern in this world and in reality is whether an entity chooses life and chooses to awaken to an infinite reality, to open its eyes, to accept, to see, and then to relate, and become part of this infinite whole, or if it chooses to close itself off and try to control anything which enters into this isolated little blob of existence. So I don't know if this is all that important to the overall ideas, but I guess as far as right and wrong, since we were talking about right and wrong, what is right is anything which is relational and relates and experiences that which is outside or the other in a relational way that includes the other as what it really is, that doesn't try to control and form it. And that which is wrong is anything that harms, the existence outside of ourselves and seeks to experience through like force and control in that way, in destructive ways. And it's wrong essentially because it will lead to our isolation from reality. It's like to our death, true death, which is like completely being cut off from existence. So to me, that's essentially what right and wrong are, and life and death are, is whether we actually are living in existence and able to relate to it, or we're completely cut off from it and unable to relate.
I definitely agree with. I mean, obviously there's some things I want to go with,
Sure,
the normal things, like that. I mean,
yeah.
I think
we don't have to cover everything at all. I mean, whatever we go down.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Like other things that I would not argue, but I mean, I think
but argue, debate,
or I would rise the question to. It's almost unimportant, really.
No, but please. We don't care. This is